right? So are you biased towards negativity as a leader? The amount of attention that we pay to positive versus negative events will have an impact on our perception of reality and our perception of the world, how well we're doing in business, how well we're doing with our team, and all those other components. So what we want to look at is say, it is important to be able to look at problems and look at issues and recognize those issues in order to resolve them. You don't want to be issue blind, but are you negatively biased when you're looking at those issues? So an excessive focus on negative information can really lead to a lot of problems. And we see it every day. We see it with leaders who just end up basically running down this rabbit hole. They can't see anything that's good about what's coming about. Now, why is this? Well, there's some evolutionary components here as well. It made sense that if we were going to survive as a species, we should probably look for things that are dangerous. This is carried on into our modern day way of living, and we're finding dangers and negative information in a lot of different places. So there's a few things on how the brain recognizes this. First of all, negative events are remembered better than positive events. So that's just the way that our brain's wired. We also notice that negative emotions come up faster, especially our perception of negative emotions in our perception of other people. So when people look at, there was a study done where people looked at different faces and they were able to pick up the negative emotions right away. So we know that we're sort of wired this way. And when we get sort of stuck in this negative loop, it can become very, very damaging. We end up trying to do a lot of other components on here, not just looking at problems, but strength finding and establishing, a little bit more of an optimistic mindset. However, let's take a little bit of a look at what a negativity bias does and what we call the negativity bias loop. And so I'm going to sort of draw this out for you. All right, here we go. So negativity bias is what we're talking about. There we go. So we've got negativity bias there. So we get bias towards negative information. So this is someone with a bias to the negative. Fundamentally, what happens is that two things happen. First thing is that they become faster at detecting negative information. So they become faster to detect the negative. All right, so now this person's noticing things. They're noticing things, they're negatively biased, and they are increasing the speed and the rate of associating more negative things. You couple this with another quality that happens, which is the difficulty of letting go. Not only are they aware of the problem, they can't quite let go of what they've noticed as being a problem. So they're now completely focused on it, they're stuck on it, and this is what we've seen this in teams. We see this with someone who just becomes just like, and this is a problem, and this is a problem, and this is a problem. And you're like, oh, yeah, we get it. It's a problem. What's the solution? And they can't necessarily jump to the solution. Maybe they're not solution oriented. And so they just harbor onto this. They can't let go. Might happen in a relationship as well. Okay. So what this creates is a negative emotional state. They're angry, they're frustrated, they're maybe feeling signs of guilt or shame. Maybe their anxiety level has increased, but they're not in a positive emotional state. They're currently feeling quite negative when it comes to their emotionality. Now, the problem with being in this sort of perpetual state, not using it as a catalyst for change, so not feeling anger and saying, let me do something about it, or not feeling frustration, saying something's stuck where the expectation is not matching. They're not bringing in cognitive load here. They're staying in this very negative emotional state. What that does is it loops, which makes them now biased towards more negative information, detecting that information faster, can't let go, and they just end up going in this cycle. Now, the way to break this is two things. One, having a higher level of conscious awareness as a leader. And two, an intervention. At some point, we got to loop this person out of this scenario. And they have to kind of go, okay, great. We see the problem. Let's move on to how do you feel about it? Okay, like that's important. At the same time, what would it take to let go? What's the success condition relative to the negative information that you're dealing with? If you can get that intervention in either through self-reflection, positive coping, using the right avenues and tools to get to that point, you will develop and evolve. People who can't do this are going to end up with high levels of resentment. They are going to basically just not let go of issues. And they live very, very heavily in the past. And so their memory is impacting their current state happiness. We want to break that cycle. So there's a little breakdown of how negativity bias might be impacting you or others on your team. Highly recommend looking into a little bit of that. This is stuff that we talk about all the time in our group coaching program on leadership mindset. And so it does require a little bit of education. It does require some action and high levels of awareness and the willingness to do something about it.